Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Once again, it's on. And of course, it's on. It's Thursday. And you know what we do on Thursday. It's time to bring that community activist, the one and only, the hardest working lady in the community. I'm talking about the community activist, Georgia Allen. How you doing? How you doing? How you doing?
I think I'm doing pretty good. Had a busy morning. You would have thought that the ceilings had fallen in, was back up on the interstate or whatever, because I mean, it has been nonstop busy this morning. All kinds of stuff been going on. But guess what? It's Thursday, and I am Georgia F. Allen with GA4. And today we're going to talk about the children shall lead them. The children shall lead them. And many of you who read scripture find that is one of the scriptures in our Bible. And I'm speaking to that topic today because of the fact that we watched our children take the lead at the school board meeting on Tuesday evening. The KWANZAA principle for today is UMOJA, or unity, and to strive and maintain unity in the family, the community, the nation, and the race. And I decided on this principle simply because I saw what happened when all those young people came together to speak in favor of DEIA and to speak against this push from our school board members who work for us to just make decisions without receiving community input. And I was like, if adults would engage as openly and as honestly as our young people have and our young people did, we could bring about real change in our community. Our faith message is from Isaiah, and I forgot to get the chapter, but the verse is verse 6, and I'll pull it later. The wolf also shall dwell with the lambs. The leopard shall lie down with the young goat. The calf and the young lion and the fatling, fatling, together, and a little child shall lead them. And I kind of feel like that when it comes to our community, and not just to our Black community, but our community at large, is that we got all of this stuff going on. We got the wolf coming at us this way. We got the leopard coming at us this way. We got the goats and the calves, and we got all these things that's taking place all around us. But there's a calmness about our young people, a directness about our young people that tends to lead us away from the things that are not of value to us and lead us toward things that are of value. And so I chose that particular scripture today because after seeing the interaction of our young people at the school board meeting, I was like, you know what? That's got to be my topic this week. I'm going to talk about our young people. So greetings. Again, it is Thursday. I am Georgia F. Allen with GA4. As always, I want to thank Mr. Henderson Vaughn, a.k.a. Captain 85, a.k.a. The Dream Maker, and we are live on WVDM. And he has opened up the airwaves to bring our listening audience a simple conversation for information, a conversation for correction whenever necessary, as well as a conversation for transformation, because these are transformative times. And I think for those of you who may have seen the school board meeting in person or may have gone on and watched it live on air, you saw the transformation that is taking place right here and now in front of our faces with our youth and with others who are willing to stand up and step up on behalf of our community and on behalf of injustice. That's why I named the show GA4. Thank you. Our disclaimer, many of you, and keep that picture up, many of you are well aware that I have worked in civil rights and have been a community activist for many, many, many decades. Therefore, the various positions that I may take are mine and mine alone. I do not speak on behalf of my group or on behalf of any groups or any organizations. Whew. Okay. Now, that does not mean that I will not pull information about organizations and that I will not pull information about what is taking place. So it could be newspaper articles, it could be information from various websites. Now, those things I will talk about based upon what is written, what is in writing. But that does not mean that I'm going to sit here and decide why these people are doing what they're doing or anything like that. So that's what I mean when I say I don't speak on behalf of any groups or any organizations. But it does not negate me from the ability to read about them and what works they are doing in the best interest of our community, or what works are being done, not necessarily to our well-being. Thank you. So again, as I come to on the air today, my focus is on our youth. We try to determine everything about our youth without allowing them to speak sometimes. We see what is taking place on TV, in the music industry, in the media, and all types of arts. And we assume that when our children see these things or hear them, that they are absorbing and implementing, when in fact, many times they are evaluating what it is they see. They are critically thinking about what all of these things mean to them personally or what it means to the global community, because our kids are thinking globally, because they are able to have access to the internet. They're able to have access to resources that were not available to us when we were very young. Therefore, they're looking at things very differently than we once looked at them. So I want us to be careful that we're not dismissive and that we determine in advance what it is that they believe or what it is that they're thinking, instead of asking them the questions, asking the questions of them. So yes, our young people can and do still critically think. Yes, they do. And how do I know? Because I saw it on Tuesday night here in Virginia Beach when they spoke before school board. I heard them speak to the issue of DEIA. And while much of the emphasis is simply focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, very little is focused on the A, accessibility, access. Very little is focused on that particular part of DEIA. And so when we heard our young people speak, when we heard them talk, they talked about how important diversity is to them, regardless of what many of the adults say, regardless of the various sound bites that we hear, regardless of the gaslighting, regardless of the straw man that they try to put before our young people understand. And they stood before the audience and contradicted a lot of what is being placed out in the media and these groups. Now, many times when a group comes out in favor of certain things or try to address certain things, the opposition group called them the radical. But when we saw our young people and we heard from them, it was quite obvious that these groups that are out here that are chiming in on DEI and trying to turn DEI into a negative, those are the radicals. Don't get it twisted. Those are truly the radicals. You want to share something with us, Henderson, with regards?
Yeah. Well, with our young people, they got more tech. Their technologies they're technology driven. Where in the past, we have to have a meeting here, a meeting there. Now their meeting is 24/7 whenever they pick up their cell phone and start discussing things, and they see things changing, they see things happening, and it's not just they're just listening to music or just having fun. Now, when you affect what they want to learn and how they want to engage with other people, they know the world is not just all black and white.
Correct.
That's the way the system tries to paint it. So now they're getting upset because we have in Virginia Beach, as in every city, we have a lot of different nationalities and people of colors and religion, and they are friends now. They stay next door, so you can't say you can't play with them, you can't go here, and you don't need to listen to this. And this is the effect that it's having.
And that is very important, because a friend of mine, we were just talking this week. She lived in Japan for a while, and I lived in Belgium for a while. And she was telling me how when she and her husband were living over in Japan, and she said, we just lived with the community. We interacted with the community. We went out to eat with the community and everything. And she said the aura that, they were looking at them like, wow, like it was a mystery or something. And as they began to talk, she recognized that they were making their decisions about Black people based upon what they had seen on TV from the American media. And I was sharing with her, I had a similar experience as well when I lived in Belgium, because I had come home because my mama got sick and ultimately passed away, and I came home for the funeral. And so we took some pictures before I left, and I took the pictures back to Europe and everything. And the folks were looking, and they were like, you live there? I was like, yeah. And they were like, you live there? I said, yeah. And they asked it the third time, and then I got it. I said, yes. You're thinking that Black people in America all live in this particular area. They live in poverty. They're poor. They live in the ghetto, or they're on some type of substance abuse or whatever. I said, I have to tell you, that is American propaganda. They spread that information so that you have a preconceived idea about who we are as a group, who we are as individuals, and who we are as a people. I said, that is not true. I said, on top of that, where I live, it's modest compared to many of the people that I know, and the lifestyle and the housing that they live in. And their eyes got so big because they were looking at my house and thinking, wow, that place is absolutely awesome, which it was. But when I shared with them that there were many people who lived far better in much, much larger houses, who were also Black, and that what they're seeing on television is not necessarily true about the Black community. And I say that to say this: diversity, equity, and inclusion, you won't understand it until you interact with people who are different than you are. And what our nation has done so effectively and so intentionally is to prevent people from gaining access and learning.
Yeah.
And they have been very intentional about that. They've also propagandized how people live in this nation, and they promoted negative stereotypes all around the world about our community. And so once we go places and travel to different areas, then they see us differently, because the people that they see who are extremely rich, that's their expectation. There's all of these poor Black people in America, but then there are the Oprah Winfreys okay, well, she has plenty of money, so
Mhm.
that's expected that she should have really, really nice things.
Yeah.
But I don't expect a Georgia, a Henderson, or other people to be able to live in their own homes. I don't expect that, because that's not what America is promoting overseas. So that is one of the reasons. It's not every reason, but that is one of the reasons why diversity, equity, and inclusion is so important, and why diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility is important. Because otherwise, people have these false narratives. People are running around believing one thing is true when it is not true. And I was very pleased to see our young people go before the school board and inform them of what it means to them personally to have these programs, to have access to various opportunities in their school system, and the impact and the value that it brings to them. That was powerful. That was extremely powerful to listen to our young people, and from several schools. They weren't all from the same school, they weren't all the same race, they weren't all the same genders. And the other thing that I noticed is that they inform the elected officials that we watch you. They even called out one of the people who serves on school board, who presented the resolution to remove DEI. And they told him to his face, you miss about 50% of your meetings. The young people had tracked what he was doing, and they told him, I live in your district. And basically said they were willing to probably run against him and remove him from the seat, because they did not feel like he was doing his job.
Mhm.
And they understood that him serving on school board meant that his job was to serve the needs of the community. His job was to listen to his constituents and then move forward with addressing those needs and working to champion what they wanted. And they said, well, I'm not 18 yet and I can't vote yet. I will be.
Mhm.
And I thought that was such a powerful statement. You know, the young people were really on um, this DEI leaving their system. They did not want that. And they felt as if these decisions, which was true, were being made without any input from them whatsoever. They said, we go to school and you're making this decision about something that directly affects us without even asking us, how do we feel about what you're attempting to do? They shared about the fact that they enjoyed going to the Black Student Union, or they enjoyed going to the Asian, I want to say committee, but it's not. Um, they all have these various different groups that people can attend. And they were sharing how they enjoyed it because it allowed them to learn more about the different cultures. It allowed them to listen. It allowed them the opportunity to hear some of the struggles and some of the things that they were going through. But it also allowed them to hear many of the opportunities and many of the things that they overcame and where they are today. And it was very interesting to listen to our young people and hear from their perspective of what DEI means to them and how DEI has allowed them to be more inclusive instead of so separated. Now, you've had kids and grandkids in the school system. What are you hearing from them when it comes to how things are working on behalf of our young people?
Were you speaking to me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yes,
I
it's
my
me and
my
you.
Yeah, I just got one in Virginia Beach now. My granddaughter with Kenny and
Hmm.
his wife, and she's we talk when she comes over, and she'll tell me about the groups that she's in. She was uh, playing the piano. Now she wants to learn how to play a guitar. And some of the people that she hang with now are more of a mixed group instead of than just black. She has white friends that come over. She go over their house, and is it my family is very diverse. It's not all my family is married to a different nationality. you know and when that I say that to say this is that I didn't bring them up to you have to marry somebody that look like your mother, but you do have to marry somebody that knows how to love you like your mother. The important thing is when it comes to us being able to teach and educate our young people as they grow up, they have their own freedom to make their own choices. And what we have to do is guide them and let them know that this person good for you or that person mistreating you, but you have to make the choice if you want to be in their circle, you know.
Now, let me ask you this.
Mm.
Does she ever speak to you with regards to what takes place in her school environment or in those social groups that she is a part of? Because
Mm.
one of the things is they want to eliminate DEI, which would affect all of the children. So there's this misnomer
Mm.
that DEI is, they're trying to do away with it because they think that that is somehow is going to be a massive sweep of getting rid of everything that is black in nature. So
Well, that's not that's nothing new with Virginia Beach. Virginia Beach is probably having a after party celebrating the DEI or whatever it's called. Just like when they built the gifted school, I said I was going to look up and see. I guarantee you they ain't got 50 black people in that gifted school over there. My
so they
kids,
basically have a private public school with
uh-huh,
public tax dollars that come from all the residents,
right.
especially from residents who are homeowners or, you know,
Well, I mean, because when my Alice came when she moved down here from New Jersey, her son was in a gifted class. So when we went to register him at school, I had to go out there because she was they were giving her a hard time. So I went out there and I spoke to him. They said, "Oh well, we can register him in class, but he's not going to be in a gifted class down here. He's just going to go to a regular class." All my kids in Virginia Beach, my son had the highest projectile. He's in the military now. He had the highest credit score. He was considered a genius. They wouldn't even put him in a gifted class. So, and my like I said, Alice's son graduated. He graduated at 16 from Bayside High, and he left after he graduated. He moved to George. I mean, he moved to DC and went to Dubai and stuff. And they wound up wanting him to teach the class, but they didn't want to play him. So after a year or two, he left. He didn't even. That's how smart he is. He creates plays. He's an artist. He worked for the government clearance, highest clearance you can get. So all these things that they did, and I've been working with him ever since Mr. Peach was the head of the school board. The gentleman's name, Mr. Peach, for 3 years.
so in essence,
Uh-huh.
you have found that even though your student, your children or your grandchildren are extremely smart, they don't necessarily get the same access to
Right,
programs that perhaps a student who may be from the European community.
right,
And and the story that they're trying to sell is that we want children that have merit. So your story
uh-huh.
just shared that your children have more merit then probably many of the students that are in the IB programs or the
Right.
other programs or more merit than the students who are in the old donation.
Right.
And what we heard a lot from people who are against DEI is they want to say, well, we just want people on merit. Well, if that was the case, chances are old donation would not
Mhm.
look like the demographics of old donation
Right.
because they would truly place students in old donation who have the highest scoring percentile, who are the most capable, and who are more deserving of a special school for the gifted and the talented versus what they're doing now, which is placing the privilege there instead of the people who are the ones that have the most potential, who are some of the brightest and some of the smartest, but are not there. I
Right.
remember doing one night, I was at an NAACP meeting, I think it was, and I was talking about the old donations and the various gifted programs they have and the academies that they have. So I asked the people in the room, and these are people mostly college graduate, some with PhDs, um, many with master's degrees, and they're, have students in the school system or grandchildren in the school system. And I asked them, how many of your children or grandchildren have been accepted in Old Donation?
Hmm.
0. I asked them how many of them had applied to Old Donation. And a number of them had applied, gone through the processes and everything, but their students was not accepted. That happened to me. My great granddaughter,
Hmm.
her elementary school teacher, I want to say at Newtown Elementary, he
Hmm.
was a fierce advocate for her to
Right.
be placed at Old Donation. I'm a civil rights activist here in the city of Virginia Beach.
Right.
And I'm telling you, it is virtually impossible, no matter how talented, how smart, or what have you, our student may be, you would have to fight to the death almost. And
Hello.
that would eat up all the time, and it would be delayed and delayed and delayed, and your child still would not get in there.
Right.
So I say that to say this: they really do not want merit. They want the other P word. I mean, they want the P word, which is
Mhm.
privilege. They
Right.
want to ensure that only certain people from certain families are able to get into these specialized programs, be they academies or be the Old Donation Center
Mhm.
for the gifted and the talented. All right. With that being said, we're coming up on the time for announcements. And I'm doing this a little differently today. There was
Mhm.
somebody that was on my mind this week that I thought about, and I'm going to probably do that person last. But I have this wonderful calendar. I don't know if anybody can see it. But anyway, this calendar here is a Black History calendar.
Mhm.
But over here, it gives you a list of different people. So it's not a check to see if they were listing people based on birthdays or anything like that, and they are not. And so one of my favorite people in as a, in this month, the month of April, they're focusing on literature. And so one of
Mhm.
my favorite people, favorite writer was Richard Wright. Richard Wright was born in 1908 and died 1960. He used his writing abilities to inform the world about the living conditions African Americans endured in America's cities. His most famous work was Native Son, sold more than 250,000 copies. And keep in mind that was back within 3 weeks of its release in 1940. So in 1940, he sold over 250,000 copies within 3 weeks. So imagine that. Okay. In this landmark work, Wright explored the deep racial divide prominent throughout America, as well as the poverty and I hate papers that are shiny because trying to read them is really difficult to read them when they're so shiny and the glossy, as well as the poverty and alienation of African Americans residents of Chicago's South Side. Many consider Wright to be one of the 20th century's greatest writers. I would read more, but I'm noticing that trying to read, and when you're doing television or whatever, you got to have light.
Yeah.
The light reflects off of this, and it is. If I had known it was going to be this bad, I would have made a picture of it and then read it from white paper instead of trying to read it from the glossy. But I did want to read Richard Wright. There are others up here who were successful literary geniuses like Maya Angelou, Gwendolyn Brooks, William Wells Brown, Robert Hayden, Zora Neale Thurston, Phyllis Wheatley, and George Washington Williams. These are some of the literary geniuses of previous times. Also Langston Hughes, and most of these are the early 20th century people, because Langston was born in 1902, Richard Wright was born in 1908, and then we had some people that were born a lot earlier than that. But the other person that I want to acknowledge, the other two people I want to acknowledge, is Anne Lowe. Anne Lowe was a Black fashion designer. She owned a Black couture in New York City and was the designer of the wedding gown for the late former First Lady Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy. Now, this woman, I saw pictures of her and information about her. The delicacy of the things that she made, that when they did the short bio on her, many of those dresses would probably cost you millions of dollars today, because she pretty much hand stitched almost everything that she made, and everything was personally designed. So they were all beautifully designed dresses that were just made mostly for what they call the rich and the famous of that day and that time. I also want to mention Reginald F. Lewis during our time of acknowledgement. Reginald F. Lewis, the late Reginald F. Lewis, was a graduate of Virginia State University and also Harvard Law School. He owned his own law firm. He was the first African American to build a $1 billion company. And many of you are well aware, became known as TLC, Beatrice International Holdings, Inc. Mr. Lewis was a philanthropist. In 1987, Lewis established the Reginald F. Lewis Foundation, which funded grants of approximately $10 million. This is 1987, y'all, to various nonprofit programs and organizations while he was alive. His first major grant was an unsolicited $1 million to Howard University in 1988. The federal government matched the grant, making that gift worth $2 million, which was used to fund an endowment for scholarships, fellowships, and faculty sabbaticals. He made his first major purchase of McCall pattern for $22.5 million and continued on to purchase a number of other businesses, leading to the purchase of Beatrice Foods, later becoming TLC Beatrice International. Reginald F. Lewis passed away January 19, 1993 at the age of only 50 years old. Now, this guy achieved all of this by the age of 50 years old. It's a phenomenal story and one that we don't talk about it enough. At one point in time, we had a youth entrepreneurship enterprise in the NAACP that was originally funded by Reginald F. Lewis. And we worked very diligently to try to get as many students as we could to get involved in Youth Entrepreneur Institute. I think it was called YEI, the Youth Entrepreneurship Institute, allowing them access to become business owners. And this is important. And the reason why it is so important, because we have constantly pushed our students to get a good job, get a good education, do all of those things. But we have not pushed the entrepreneurship side enough, because I will assure you the chances of you becoming a multi-billionaire with a college education and working a job is very slim to nil. Whereas becoming an entrepreneur, you have more opportunity to broaden your ability to grow your finances, to grow businesses, to buy and sell. A lot of what he did is he, purchased businesses, some of which he sold later, and that brought in a tremendous amount of money, or what they call acquire. There's acquisitions, and he did a number of acquisitions and things of that nature, and that allowed him to begin to build up a tremendous amount of revenue. And ultimately, he became one of the first billionaires. They talk a lot about Oprah, but they don't talk a lot about what he was able to achieve and accomplish during his very short lifetime. So in his 40s, this gentleman had already become a billionaire, had a billionaire industry, and he became international. And that's another thing that was very interesting about Mr. Reginald L. Lewis. Now, he passed away at 1993. He married, and by 1999, his widowed wife sold all of his holdings. But she'll live a very good life. I don't think they ever had any children or anything. So selling off the holdings instantly, she was already a billionaire, but instantly made her probably even more money to live off of for the rest of her life. But I did want to talk about the Reginald Lewis, and again, I wanted to mention a few of the other literary greats, because I think that's important that we use our time. As you know, when I come on the air, I want to use the time to promote the good in the community, because if we don't promote ourselves, we can't expect someone else to promote the work that we're doing. That is not going to happen. Okay.
That's on both ends. It's people don't understand is everybody that smile in your face, it's not really for you.
Correct.
And when we don't have enough, we have enough buying power in our community to make anybody business grow. It's just that we have to connect the dots. And Absolutely. When you connect the dots, you can justify by saying, I don't want this. This is what I want. I don't want this crowd. I want this crowd. And because the crowd is going to tell you, people are going to tell you what they want.
Correct.
And if you move from that over to the left or too far to the right, they're
Mhm.
not going to support you. All you got to do is, with young people, if you give them the right information and show them that you sincerely care, they will rise to what you want them to become. It's not
Absolutely.
rocket scientist stuff. It's just that today, to me, is that we are not showing enough love to our
Mhm.
young people. We're criticizing them with which way they go. You can't be with that person. You can't talk to that person.
Mhm.
Why are you doing it? All you have to do is set standards. You
Correct.
go to school, 9 o'clock, you're in the house, and you're not working, you're in the house by 10. Depending on their age, you
Mhm.
can be on play your game or talk
Mhm.
to your friend, but after 10, everything is off.
Correct.
You know,
Again, and the children shall lead.
yeah,
We're seeing that take place. I mean,
yeah,
on the national front, if you look at um, the young man by the name of David Hogg, now he's running into some hiccups, and to be honest with you, I agree to a certain extent. Uh, how it's handled may be a little different than I would have done it, but I
right.
do agree. David Hogg, some of you may know, he's one of the vice chairs of the Democratic Committee, the National Democratic Committee,
Mm,
and so he has been actively involved in trying to find candidates to run for office, etc. The problem that I have is that he wants to run candidates against people who are already elected to office.
right.
And my
Yeah,
feeling is, and he's a young guy, my feeling is there are a lot of seats that your party does not have. Why not invest money in removing people from those seats and replacing them with people from your own party? Because again, politics is not about being even Steven, it's about addition. And
right.
so if you want your party to grow, you have to get new seats in the House, in the Senate. Just trading one Democrat for another Democrat does not move you forward. It only
Right.
allows you to remain the same. And so right now there's this going on. But again, he's a young person. He's energetic. He's engaging the community and he's leading. Now, do I think he's leading the correct way? I think he might need to tweak a few things because I understand where he's coming from. He's coming from the standpoint that he feels a lot of the people are not working hard enough, that he feels they should be able to do more. But it's not a good idea to spend money in districts that you're going to automatically win anyway by
Right.
by putting in a primary unnecessarily. You're better off sitting down with the person that is still there and working with them to find a replacement so that that replacement still gets to run unopposed, or the only opposition they have is the opposition party, not a fight internally within the party. So with that being said,
Hmm.
you know, we want our young people to lead, but we also want them to recognize there is a um, good way to lead and not so good way to lead. If you're trying to lead in a manner that's going to help you to reach a specific objective or goal, because if all you're doing is, you know, doing the rotating the seat, but you're never adding any seats, you will not be able to get the things passed that you want passed. And most of the people that are in the seat, regardless of how old they are, regardless of some of their nuances, 90% of the time they vote the way that a David Hogg would want them to vote. Now, if they were voting at 20%, then you might want that person to be gone. But if they're voting at 90% of the way that you want, you have to come up with a parameter of why you want this person to leave. And someone that's voting in your favor 90% of the time, that is not a good bar to use. That is my humble opinion. So with that being said, again, our young people, I'm thrilled to watch them, to see their intensity, to see how they want to move things in a different way. But we also want to surround them and work with them to help them to see both the positive as well as the negative. What impact is this going to have doing things a certain way? And don't give them what you think the end zone is going to be. You allow them the opportunity to think about it, to discuss it, and to determine what type of outcome. And then from there, find out, is that the type of outcome that you want? And that will allow us to better develop our young people. That will allow them to better look at something from a standpoint of the pros and the cons, and not just totally from how I feel about something. How you feel and how things work can be very different. And so we definitely want them to lead, but we also want them to have the opportunity to better evaluate and kind of dig a little deeper. With that being said, we see a whole lot of nonsense that the media has been spewing, which is not true. The suggestion that if our children learn about American history, it will make children feel bad about themselves, not true. If our children learn about American history, the truth about American history, it will suggest that they are to blame for what happened to others. That is not true. If our children learn accurate history, that white children will be uncomfortable. Again, not true. How do I know? Because I heard them talk about learning about history. And they have identified that there has been a lot of negative history from this nation. However, it has allowed them not to continue to promote information that is misrepresented. And they understand that. They understand that the history that they were taught was not necessarily true history. So all children are asking for an open dialogue about the real history of the USA, a dialogue about what actually took place, so that they can at least evaluate that particular mindset that created the situation that caused the enslavement, that created the situation that caused that those people at that period of time to be okay with removing people who were already here from their land and pushing them off of their land and forcing another group of people and to terrorize another group of people to build the land for them, to grow the crops for them, to build the homes for them, to do all of these things. The children are interested in the actual history and not this false history that has been presented to them for years, because it was presented to me, it was presented to you. They really are interested in America's accurate history. So it's not the children who are concerned about the accurate history. It's their parents and their grandparents don't want the truth to be known. When in essence, if the truth is known, it will not only set your young people free, it will actually set all of us free. And so we need to understand that when our children are evaluating the mindset that created the situation and what were the ideas and what are some of the suggestions. They want to identify ways that they can ensure that we do not repeat our past mistakes. And personally, I think that's good.
Mhm.
What about you? You think
Yes.
that's good that our
Yeah.
young people are looking at what took place and trying to evaluate what was the thought, what was the mindset, what created this idea that it was okay to enslave people, that it was okay to um, put the Japanese in an internment camp, that it was okay to do all of these various things and all, and then try to sweep it under the table and say, well, let's just forget about it. Let's not discuss it. You know, we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about the true history of this nation. And the children are saying, and the children are leading on this, they're saying, no, I want to know. No, I'm not so uncomfortable that I don't want to know truth. No, I don't feel that I have to blame myself for what others did. They're saying no. No, I don't have to feel about my bad about myself personally about what my forefathers did. And so this false narrative that is being presented by a group of people who have stolen the argument, it is time for us to make the truth argument. It is time for us to create the right sound bites, the right slogans, and then sit down and educate all of the people about the real history and not leave it locked away in some vacuum somewhere. Coming to the close of the show today, again, I just want to give out acknowledgement to Reginald Lewis, to an Ann Lowe, to a Richard Wright, and others who really open up doors for us. Now that the doors are open, we have a responsibility not only to walk through the doors, but to keep that door open so that others can walk through the door as well. The fact that this gentleman um, was able to be so successful by 1993, to get all of this accomplished by 1993, and he was only 50 years old, let us know that if he could do it, many other people from our community can do likewise. So as we come to the end of the show today, let us stay focused on our principles. Let us stay focused on our legacy, what we've created, what we've done, but also let us focus on our future, on our future of our children, but the future of each other. Our young people are giving voice to the issues that concern them. Let us do our part by encouraging them, but also by assisting them in gaining access to more foreign languages. As more and more we become a more global community, we're coming together globally, whether we like it or not. Let us also work to assist them in gaining access to internships, international travel, and other sources and resources that will strengthen them as young people. But one of the other things that we got to also do is we got to make sure that we introduce them to the real ID. And we also have to make sure that we also get our own real ID. So as things are changing, we're going to have to change with these times. It may not be what we would like to see, but these things that are here and these changes that are being made, it is critically important that we educate our community with regards to what's happening. So the real ID, for those of us who can afford to buy the new real ID, let's make sure we get that done. I think it's going to be over on May the 7th.
Mm-hmm.
That we're no longer going to be able to purchase the real ID. But the other thing is, what about the persons who can't afford the real ID? What plan do we have in place to ensure that we have funding to assist people in getting the real ID? What about the people who may need to get to the DMV or wherever to make that purchase? Do we have resources in place to come together to ensure that we get these people to the source as well as to the resources? Because I think that's where our mindset has to be. Our mindset has to be is solution oriented. We need to be solution oriented. Everything that's going on with regards to politics, with regards to all these changes, with regards to DEI, with regards to cutting the Department of Education, any of those things, what is our plan of action? Again, our children have spoken, our children are leading, and now it's our time to step up to the plate and do the things that we should do. Again, I am Georgia F. Allen with GA for Justice. I come to you each week on Thursday at noon to share a conversation with all of you. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. Have a great weekend, and we will see you next Thursday.
No doubt about it. Once again, you always bring the heat. You got to bring the heat in Virginia Beach.
Absolutely.
You know, and we appreciate all the, you know, your service that you've dedicated to the city of Virginia Beach, and let people know that, you know, you don't have to do this. You retired a long time ago. You're voluntarily driven, but the most important thing is our young people get to see a legend, you know, and to be able to and the adults that listen should be able to, if they see you out on the street, and introduce their children to you, because a lot of things that may not have happened and not been pushed if it wasn't for you and some of your other comrades that work diligently in the Afro-American community, not just for the Afro-American community, but it's for all communities, you know, all race, creed, and color. You know, I don't think when people leave this journey here, they're going to be saying, well, I belong over there. I belong over here. I don't think God's going to say, well, you're in the wrong place already, so we know where you need to go. It won't be here. But they need to recognize that you do a lot of work, and it's volunteer, and you don't get paid. But they should be able to sometimes pay us, not just monetarily. Pay is sometimes just acknowledging what a person does go a long way. It's the fuel that fuels our people to make them say, I got to do more. And every Thursday, you come on here and dedicate doing your research and attending different meetings and meeting different people to make sure that you're on the right track and that you make a difference, you know, in the next generation, the future generation of the 757, and most of all in Virginia Beach and the nation as a whole. And I want to take time out to thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
All right. But nevertheless, we'll be back next week, same time, same place. GA for Justice with your community activist, Miss Georgia Allen. And I hope you have a blessed day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.